So imagine that you are in a bank and it's a normal day, right? And it's full of people, and then some robbers come in. They have guns. They ask everyone to put their hands up, and then out of all the people in the room, they shoot you in your shoulder, right? How many of you think you're unlucky? Just raise your hands. Like, how many of you think you're very unlucky because he could have shot anyone, right? He shot you. And then, how many of you think you're lucky because he just shot you in the shoulder, right? Okay, good. So, today we're talking about how we can turn rigid plans into dynamic successes. Now, the best people in the world, these big entrepreneurs, most innovative companies, they have one thing in common is that they run towards change rather than running away from it. And I'm here to remind you is that change is a part of life, whether that's your professional life, your personal life, right? So all of us have dreams that we have placed on the side table and they're getting dusty. Why? That's because, as humans, we're afraid of change. Let me remind you of Newton's first law of motion, which is about inertia. It says that any body that is moving or in motion, it's going to resist change. And human beings are much like the same. We resist change. We don't like changing. Who likes that? Do you like that? I don't like that. So this is because of the path of least resistance, right? We are in our comfort zones, which is why we don't want to end up changing. We're thinking about what we're going to lose, but we're not thinking about what we might gain. We're not thinking about, what all the possibilities are. So, starting today, how about we make a little bit of change, whether you want to bring change in your personal life, whether you want to bring change in your professional life, your organization. How about we start approaching situations with a different mindset? How about we start exploring all possibilities? So basically, the next thing is the human negativity. There's a human negativity bias in all of us, right? And this is inherent. Many, theories down the line have concluded that human beings are inherently negative. I'll give you a personal example. When I was working at a call center, funnily enough, I wanted to prepare for the civil service exam, which is one of the biggest exams in the country. And funnily enough, no one actually encouraged me. Everyone was like, you are stupid because you're going to be losing a lot of money and you're going to be unemployed, right? So we are inherently negative, right? And then there's an author, Sean Anker. He conducted an experiment once where he concluded that there were three groups, one of them just being negative all day, one of them being positive, one of them being neutral. And the ones that were being positive were actually, performing better in their life. So these first two steps, what I'm getting you ready for is change, but mentally, not physically, right? Mentally up here, you have to start exploring all possibilities. Mentally up here, you have to start being more positive about things, right? If I were to lose my job today, I would just be focusing on the negatives, but I might be gaining a few things along the way, right? Let's turn towards actions now. The Zorro circle, right? It's a funny name, but it means that it's your circle of control, right? So we often focus on things that are not in our control. Imagine you want to become an astronaut. And is it easier for you to build a university in Pakistan that can make astronauts, or is it easier for you to actually go to another country and then get admission there, right? The second part is much easier. In the same way, we worry about a lot of things, right? We worry about traffic, we worry about financial losses, the stock market crashing, right? But that's not in our control. Another example is in 2008 in the financial crisis. A lot of companies were affected by the mortgage crisis. But what they did was they actually minimized those losses by putting in safety measures, right? They are doing what's in their control. So starting today, whether you want to go to the gym, whether you want to become a doctor, a civil servant, right? You need to actually list out what is in your control. Maybe the reason why you don't go to the gym is because you want to go away to a one that's very far away from your home. Just pick a gym that's near to your home, right? We have to make things easier for ourselves. we have to start thinking positively. I asked you guys in the start that how many of you think you are unlucky to be shot. That's, a natural thinking, but I want to change that mindset. I want you guys to think positively about change that can occur in your life. But all of us think that all of these good entrepreneurs, all of these celebrities, these guys have such good willpower, right? Until we realize that willpower is not enough, right? Obviously their willpower is good, but it's never the whole formula. It's a combination of willpower and good habits. So John Tierney is, a psychologist. He's conducted a study in which he concluded that there is ego depletion, which means that your willpower is like a muscle. It's going to run out. This is why every time you try to start something new, build a new habit, you eventually give up after 2 to 3 days. That's because your willpower runs out. Willpower is never enough. It can get you going, but it cannot complete the task. Another example is that, researchers at the Stanford University in 1960 conducted the marshmallow experiment, in which they gave kids one marshmallow and told them that if they wait for 15 minutes, they'll get a second marshmallow. And much like me, most of the kids failed to make it to the second marshmallow. They ate the first one because they couldn't wait. But there was a second group of people that actually succeeded, not because of their willpower, but because they distracted themselves. So what I'm getting at is building good habits, the 20-second rule. This is basically the rule from Sean Anker's book, The Happiness Advantage, in which he talks about how a minimal change, such as 20 seconds, can actually build a good habit. So, if you are confronted with a plan and it's very rigid, you can start with small steps. I'll give you 2 examples. The first one, in his book, he wrote that he bought a guitar and then he placed it at the corner of the room. And he ended up not playing it for a month. Why? Because the activation energy required to go and actually grab the guitar and play it, it's too much. What he ended up doing was he bought a guitar stand, he placed it next to his bed, and he ended up learning the guitar in a month. Right? Another example is that this can also be used to discourage you from something. So he had a bad habit of watching TV too much. So what he did was he removed the batteries from the remote. He placed it in a drawer that took 20 to 30 seconds, just to put the batteries in. And he actually gave up on watching TV because it was too much of an effort to actually go and grab the batteries. What I'm telling you is that if your goal is to study, if your goal is to become better at yourself, or even bring change in your environment, build a habit that's easy to last. Make a study table that's right next to your bed. Make sure that you don't have issues like your food is sorted, right? Maybe you have a monthly package of food, so you don't have to worry about things. Don't give yourself excuses. Start building habits that actually eventually lead to change. So when we combine willpower with a good habit, it actually leads to a lot of success. Right. So all of this is very nice, right? We're changing and we're doing everything, but the path to change is not linear, right? It's not like, woo, I'm here. It's more like up and down. And that's because, there are certain things that don't work along the way, which is fine, right? Nothing is tried and tested. When you start to make change, always make sure that you give yourself room to change things. So if something isn't working out, just, tweak it a little, change it. For example, all of us know about Airbnb, right? I'm sure a lot of you have booked it as well. It started out as a company that was actually renting mattresses to people. Can you believe that? And then when it got feedback from its own customers, they said, why don't you just rent a whole place? And they were like, bingo, that's the new idea. And they ended up becoming one of the most recognizable companies in the world. So don't be afraid to change things along the way. If you think that something isn't working out, it's natural, change it. But social support matters, right? I've conducted an experiment in many places. I'll just tell you the result. I won't do it here because it's too funny. There are two groups of people like you guys sitting here. One of them is asked to smile, and the other one is asked to be serious, and they both look at each other. And you know what ends up happening? The one that is supposed to stay serious always ends up smiling. Why is that? That is because happiness is contagious. See, we often underestimate the role of social support in our lives. You want to surround yourself with people, with mentors that can actually help you bring change. It's not as easy as, doing it alone. Make sure that you're surrounded by like-minded people. If you want to go to the gym, having a gym partner actually increases the rate of, reoccurring to the gym every day. If you want to build a business, having a mentor that actually already has that business really helps. What I'm saying is that you should really choose your social circle carefully. Don't be surrounding yourself with negative people who tell you that it can't be done. It can be done, but with the right amount of support, with the right amount of happiness inside of you, you can always achieve these things. And obviously, you guys know I love research, so there was a Framingham study, which actually researchers conducted a study for 32 years. It's that long. They studied 5,000 people, and what they actually found out is that people who have better social support actually end up, they have 25% more chance of being happy, 25% more chance of being more, risk-taking, 25% more chance of being more available at work. That tells you everything you need to know. So if we're gonna sum it all up, right? All of us have dreams that, we have goals, we have plans that we intend to change. We place them on the side table, they're getting dusty. I want to remind all of you that change starts from up here. It's all mental, right? Once you start accepting that there are multiple possibilities to any situation, then you're gonna know that there can be some positives as well. It's not all doom and gloom, Losing something does not mean that you will not gain anything. Any experience gain is always good. And then when we move on from that, I want you to take control, of your circle of control. Whatever is in your control, you can change that, you can manage that. So try managing that. Instead of blaming circumstances that are outside your circle of control, minimize the losses by taking control of your inner circle. After that, we realize that willpower is not enough. We've talked about this. So in order to counter that, we build good habits. Something as minute as a 20-second change in your life, making your life easier by 20 seconds actually helps build good habits. Whether you are personally transitioning or in an organization that actually wants to transition to newer methods, a 20-second gap can actually help you build new and good habits. And then being flexible along the way, being ready to accept change within the change. If something is not working out, don't be afraid to change it. It immediately does not mean that you're a failure, right? It just means that you need to shift your perspective, come back with a new plan, and go back to the drawing board. And lastly, always be mindful of surrounding yourself with people who encourage you, who are there to mentor you, who are there to guide you, right? Because the more happy you are, the more positive you are, the more you're gonna excel in life. That's proven by research. So I wanna end all of this by reminding all of you that if you go home today, all of us have something, we all have bad habits that we want to change. How about we start working on those, right? I promise you that nothing is as satisfactory as working on yourself, as building yourself, because when you look back, you're going to realize that you're the greatest project that you've ever worked on. There is no single success that can give you the domination, that can give you the motivation than yourself. So I hope you guys take away some lessons from this, and thank you so much for listening. Thank you.